Hello. हाँ जी सर. हाँ जी सर.
So I think most of you have joined. So once again, good morning and welcome to all of you. It's good morning to you, but good evening to our guest speaker who has joined us from California, where I think it's night time.
Yes, it's 8:30 in the evening.
Okay. Great of you to spare some time for us.
Happy to be here.
So I formally begin the session, and a few instructions are there to the participants to keep themselves on the mute mode for smooth conduct of the webinar. We have among us Dr. Amit Khanna. He is a molecular biologist, a bioinformatician, and genomic scientist with about 15 years of experience in development of arrays, applications, and productions for next generation sequencing and microarray platforms. It is a proud moment to mention that Dr. Amit is an alumnus of our college. And I think, if I'm not wrong, you graduated in 2002.
Exactly, ma'am. 2002.
Fine. It's been a long time.
Yeah, 19 years.
Yes, 19 years of span. So, Ms. Jasmine, please introduce the speaker on behalf of the participants and on behalf of the college. Ms. Jasmine, please.
Yes, ma'am. Hello, sir. With the red carpet of smiles, the bouquet of gratitude, and the spotlight of respect, we would extend our heartiest welcomes to you, sir. Dr. Amit did his graduation from ST College, followed by his master's in human genomics from Punjab University. Thereafter, PhD in molecular and cellular biochemistry from Frederick Alexander University. As a postdoctoral fellow in Buck Institute for Research on Aging, Novato, California, he entered as a scientist in product development at Centrillion Technologies in 2016, and there was no looking back. Served as a senior scientist in Dovetail Genomics, and is now working with Fluidigm Corporation, South San Francisco, California, USA. He has to his credit a large number of publications in international journals with 802 citations and an H index of 12 books and book chapters authored by him. During the COVID period, being a scientist, he has played an important role as a mentor in clearing the myths and facts at various social media platforms. Today, he will be clearing all your doubts in this interactive session. Everyone, please feel free to write your queries in the chat box that will be taken in the session. We have received several queries in our registration form too. Welcome, sir. And now I pass on to Dr. Jasween Dua for the session.
Thanks, Ms. Jasmine. So to begin with, Dr. Amit, please brief our participants about the COVID virus, the strain that has been responsible for the worldwide pandemic, and it is bouncing back again with multifold strength. The possible safety measures to be adopted for it. As a scientist, I think you can guide us much better. So please, Dr. Amit, take over.
Thanks, Jasmine. Thanks, Dr. Dua. Thanks for those kind words. And I'm happy to be here. And it's a pleasure to be interacting with you guys virtually. And I've been missing the alumni meet every January at ST College. But I think this is it's not the ideal situation to be in touch, but I'm glad to be here. Do I have permission to share my screen? If it is okay, I have a few slides
Yes, sure.
Put together. Yeah. I am having some technical issues with screen sharing. Just give me a second to make sure.
Keshav sir, please check to it.
सर स्क्रीन शेयर का ऑप्शन आ रहा होगा प्रेजेंट नाउ
जी I'm trying that. I think it is on my end. Just give me 1 second. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. So this is just a basic overview. I thought I'm guessing I'm talking to a mixed crowd, but feel free to post your questions if you guys have any particular question, if you want to have more clarification on any of the topics I'll be talking about. So the idea, a few slides, and I'll try to rush through them. The idea is to give an overview what is coronavirus, and probably in a year and a half we've been all experts at it at different levels. But just to reiterate some of the facts, that the coronavirus is not new. It's been around for a while, and we are right now dealing with this particular coronavirus, which actually has been around for a while. We had SARS earlier in 2000. We have MERS. We had SARS-CoV-2. So one of the things everybody asks is like, what is so different this time? The difference is basically all the stats what I put up there. The basics is that the transmissibility, how often, how soon it transmits, and how lethal it is. So the virus is out there to live and survive, mutate, and transmit itself. At the same time, it's not bothered about lethality. It doesn't care how many people it kills. It's more about its survival. And in that course, it can be highly lethal. It can be not that lethal. We have previous examples where we had the virus would hit us. There would be endemic or epidemic at times, but then it will go away before we could even develop vaccines for that. But this time, the COVID-19, especially the SARS-CoV-2, how we know it, it's sticking around and it's mutating, and that's the bad news. So just a little bit of molecular biology. I guess you guys are familiar with this. This is the genomic structure of it, that you have the UTR, 5', you have envelope, membrane, and nucleocapsid proteins, and then you of course have the 3' UTR poly-A tail. The structural genes are at the 3 end of the genome, and the S protein receptor binding proteins, these are important for viral entry. And then you have any protein which are responsible for assembly and of course propagate. And then N is necessary for RNA synthesis, how exactly it replicates. It most uses human machinery. As we all know, it's one of the biggest, largest rather, RNA virus. So here's a cartoon we all are familiar with. You have spike proteins, you have other proteins around it, you have RNA binding proteins, and all that stuff that is important for viral to be viable and transmit. And basically, it infects us, and we all know it. If you have comorbidities, that includes cardiovascular disease, diabetes, older age, it could actually affect you. But the core of this whole thing is that if you look at this particular virus, what you would understand is that each component of it is actually a target for us. We can have different medicines or different preventive measures to disable this machinery so that it does less damage in terms of infection or death for that matter. Why so lethal? COVID-19, why is it so lethal? Because it depends on ACE2, which is a receptor which is found all across all the organs from head to toe. And we know that we need to wear masks because in your mouth you have cells which are huge targets, which are very, very easy target for this coronavirus to attach, get in, infect, and then it infects other parts of the body. And one of the questions which was shared, and it's a very common question that people ask, that why different type of symptoms happen. So here's the answer to that. You have different organs. All of us have different genetic makeup. That means we have different SNPs, polymorphisms, different genes we inherit, and all of that on top of it, how our nucleic material is packed in our cells. That means how epigenetic changes are around, which are affecting our expression. It's involved in your drug mechanism, how drug affects your body, drug metabolism. All of that is affected by our genetic factors. So what kind of genetic makeup you have for the ACE2 to other receptors or other genes which are involved in the immune system, that actually dictates what kind of symptoms you're going to get or how severe you're going to get infected to. So one component is the viral genetic factor. The other is our own host genetic factor. So combination, there are confounding factors at times, just like sickle cell anemia. Just like some people are resistant to malaria, but they have the problem with their blood cells. So this is how exactly any disease works. So there are three components. One is the virus itself, your health, and then of course you have lifestyle issues, dietary, your comorbidities, obesity, your diabetes, insulin sensitivity. All these factors, all these pathways actually cause this. So again, the infectivity depends on the viral genome and at the same time your host genetic factors. So here's the rundown on how etiology, incubation, and reproductive number and doubling time for the virus COVID-2. It's generalized basically, and this is from 2020 publication. You can see that you have that the origin is mentioned here, but it's for 14 days, up to 14 days it incubates. Basically what during incubations it is involved in replication and trying to get critical mass so that it can infect and then cause damage. Then of course there are detection of infection. There's a RT-PCR which is considered as gold standard. So my recent, for the last 1.5 years, I've been involved in diagnostics based on body fluid, especially saliva or nasopharyngeal or whatever you get, the tests you get. There are three kind of, you have nasal swab, you have nasopharyngeal one, and then a saliva. And RT-PCR is basically, it uses, it amplifies the viral genes, especially the N and E genes, and you can basically see if the virus is there or not. At the same time, you have the IgM and IgG antibodies. These are produced by humans, and these are in response to viral infection. And you can say, okay, if the body is kind of coping with a viral infection. So those are the kind of detections for the infection we have right now. And then, of course, the susceptible population is with people with lifestyle diseases or genetic diseases where your immune system is kind of compromised. That can be because of aging as well. Then one of the major question is, like, people are freaking out and rightly so, that is it airborne? Answer is yes. It is airborne because you have droplets out there, but it's not that it's just staying there. It's not like you're breathing every inch of air has it. No, that's not possible. It is basically you have these droplets when somebody coughs who has this infection, it stays there. People have looked at that if on the surface, if you have this virus, it's already reported you have almost, I think, 1 in 10,000 chance to get infection from that. That's how CDC has put out the number. But at the same time, if you're in a crowded place where somebody's coughing and all that, so if you don't have physical barrier, you probably are gonna get infected, especially your mouth is susceptible. That's a site of infection as well. So it is transmitting through air, but it's not airborne in terms of like, it's not like particulates will stay around forever. They would sediment down. So answer is yes and no to that. Anyways, these are some of the medical terminologies. What happens when you have symptoms? The symptoms tend to, it varies. Some people stay asymptomatic, and in India, the first wave, how we call it, we didn't have that many people with symptoms. And of course, we have a younger population who's not getting infected, but at this time around, it's different. The younger population is getting infected. And so right now, how they diagnose is basically based on your symptoms, RT-PCR, and then you have some chest CT scans to look at the damage. This is like when the infection is already full blown or it's taking over your lungs. And then of course, the clinical manifestation is basically around ARDS, where you actually have your lung capacity goes down. There is, instead of lungs inflating, you have water buildup there, so that it diminishes the power of lung. But at the same time, you have the immunopathology, where this is, again, not a very comprehensive list, because since these are not all the markers, as we understand, these are the genes, their expression up and down, people kind of look at. Of course, the T cell activation and count is another readout. But more importantly, now people are also interested in looking at the polymorphisms or single nucleotide polymorphisms, genetic variations, mutations, translocations, all of that in these genes and pathways that affect these genes. At the same time, epigenetic factors that include long non-coding RNAs, mRNAs, genes involved in RNA editing, all of these are under scanner right now. There's a report that came out last week, I guess, which talks about it, and it's very comprehensive. It's not a surprise since our genome makeup is that. So of course, then you have other CD4, CD8 count, which affects it. So problem with the virus is your body is fighting with an infection. It is opening up to other infections, other problems, and that's where things get complicated. And that's why your cardiac CR proteins go up, and that's why you have a lot of cardiac failures post-infection or during infection. Right now, a media personality suffered from COVID-19, and then he had a heart attack, and he was hale and hearty before that. And you can, based on this information, you can figure out what exactly happened there, which is very unfortunate. Then I want to talk about the mutants. So one of the thing is that people keep on talking about the mutants, how soon the mutation is going to take over the masses. Is it going to get better or not? Then again, I come to my previous point that the virus is not interested in harming us. It's interested in living long. And how it lives long is basically mutates. It's the survival of the mutation that actually increases the transmissibility that survives, and that is what we capture when we sequence it. But the downside of it is there are so many deletions and mutations that happen because it's not a very efficient machinery virus has to duplicate its genetic material. And what it does is it basically ups the transmissibility. These are some of the strains which have been talked about since last September. And then let me come to the one which we are dealing in India, which is 1.617 variant, which is called as a double mutation. But then again, the idea is same, that it actually increases the infectivity, but it also increases the damage because it is affecting multiple organs. And when I say infectivity, it's basically, if I'm just throwing a number out, if there are 100 viral particles that were needed to cause an infection earlier, now it could be like 60 or 50. So that tells us the physical barrier or the mask is very important. People keep asking that N95 is efficient, or just putting a drape around your mouth is good, or scarf is good. Idea is if you can stop that critical mask getting into you, that is where the protection is. So that means double mask is an option. But then again, this is like holding an umbrella in a tsunami. So it's not just the mask is not going to help. There are other things you need to do, and that's where things are. Another thing is that this is one of the most interesting thing, and I think most of us, this slide typically talks about. Some of us have given, we have resigned to the fate that, okay, COVID-19 is a reality and it might happen. So let's be prepared what happens, what's the course of it. And when we talk to people who have survived it, and I have few friends who actually went through this, all of them have different experiences, and this is not new. The genetic composition of ours is different from mine is different from even my sister or my parents, and that dictates what is going to happen. The same, I'm still in shock with that media personality who just passed away. His mother just went through this thing, and she survived, but the kid didn't, and that tells you that there is molecular biology at play, which is making it worse. There are confounding factors around it. So this is just what we've been dealing with. So once you have the incubation, that is basically for 14 days, and this incubation is not just this virus is just sitting and just replicating itself. It's already, once it is in enough number, it starts causing it. That's why there are people who after 4 days who would start showing symptoms, and then some of them would actually not show any symptoms like 14 days or even 21 days. And that is because genetic makeup is different. The viral replication phase is a point, and when it overlaps with the innate immunity response, that's where there's a golden window for some of the drugs like we know this is in shortage, remdesivir in India, and that's not a magic bullet. But in the next slide, I'll try to explain why this is important. So basically, viral replication, if you can target right here when they are asymptomatic or symptomatic, if you know, this is the good window. If you can get help between day 5 and 11. And of course, after that, it has already manifested. Now it's not replicating, it is causing the damage because it's worked to propagate, and the virus objective of replicating and having enough number has already been achieved, and now it is causing damage to the host and spreading. And that's where our genetic makeup comes into play and our response to different drugs. And this is basically, this is for the doctors to decide based on the data specific population. So again, as a scientist, I'll advise my understanding is from the scientific part. I'm trying to explain the molecular mechanism. I'm not a certified medical doctor, so I will not give you advice that this particular drug at this point is good, but I'm just explaining the window when you actually have the opportunity to strike back and try to gain control on that. So going forward, so what drugs? People keep asking, there are so many drugs we talk about, and what's the mechanism for it? The idea of this whole, I won't bore you to death with all the details for all these drugs, but these drugs have been repurposed. That means some of these drugs have been around for different viral, they've been used to target or as a therapy against different viral infections, but at the same time, these are repurposed because people know there are common molecular pathways which are involved in these diseases. So they are repurposing it, they're just reusing it. So we know they are safe in some cases, but that's how it is working. So idea is to either target the replication cycle, so stop the virus from replicating, or stop it major as to stop it from infecting our cells to ACE receptors. So can you blunt the spike, or you can just kill the virus or do something that it is unable to replicate, so inhibitory thing. All these drugs are in these categories where basically either it will play around with the interaction happens with the host cells, or how the virus replicates. So there are a bunch of those, and this is not again an extensive list, because there are other drugs, there are other classes of drugs which can be used for the same purpose, and they're targeting. So as I mentioned, there are some molecular markers like interleukin-6, 1 through different ones which are involved in immune cells. Any of those targets, any of the drugs which target those biomarkers, they're a good candidate for as a therapy. Okay, so another interesting fact that vaccine journey takes a long time to develop, because there are you have to do it in animals, then you have to go into phase 1, 2, 3 trial, which includes transitioning it from the lab-based results experiments to actually out in the population, and then it takes a while for FDA or any regulatory authority to approve it. But we didn't have time for the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine development. It was sooner we got it. And that's why all these misinformation and doubts around whether we should take vaccine or not. To begin with, the vaccines we have right now in the market, or which are approved, they're not all conventional. The conventional ones have been where you actually just inactivate a virus, and then you injected. The flu viruses are like that. Most of those vaccinations are like that, where you actually instigate an immune response and get out of it. But the Bharat Biotech in India, that's doing that. Then you have the Oxford AstraZeneca, which basically you have the vaccine. It's an adenovirus. It spits in the DNA into your system. You get the immune response because it encodes just for the spike protein. So nothing bad there. What's interesting is that it has different efficacy against the original strain. The original strain is the one which that was sequenced back in 2020, January, which originated from Wuhan. And that's been the reference genome we've been using. But then people have tested it against other efficacy-wise. It's not effective against different mutants. That's the unfortunate part. And same, again, this Sputnik 5 is basically a 2-dose one. It's basically adenovirus-based, does the same thing, but it's not against other variants. So there are two layers to it. One is that the numbers are not clear yet. The data is not very clear that how many clinical trials have been done, under what conditions, whether people were already in medication. All those details are kind of fuzzy and they're not there. And I understand why it is that way because of the time. But again, these are the mRNA vaccine like Moderna. This is a new concept, relatively new concept, but this is how it is. It's basically your naked RNA in there, and it comes in a bubble. So that's why the storage or supply chain issues are there. But all these, then again, the Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson is a single dose one. Then again, it's an adenovirus based. But the good thing about it is the time this thing was getting developed, or it was in clinical trials, at that time, the South African strain was already in circulation. So people have data around that its efficacy is good. But there's another layer to it. By the time these vaccines were, this Johnson & Johnson was getting developed, the infection was already out there. It was full blown. It was like what's happening in India right now. The similar kind of situation was in the US. So there were people who already were beyond help, or the infection was so spread out that asymptomatic, symptomatic. So the data is kind of fuzzy there again. The 72% might be a conservative number, that it might be more effective. So, but then again, the jury is still out on this. There's no way to do that. Again, this for the Novavax, this is again, it's basically your spike proteins are coated with your nanoparticles are coated with spike protein, and this is another one. And then again, its efficacy is 85%, which is good. But then again, take all this with a pinch of salt in a way that you have to look deeper into the data. Just because the numbers, you have to see how many people were on the clinical trials, again, what kind of vaccines are you talking about? And then again, all the metadata around that, age group, comorbidities, all that stuff needs to be factored in. Again, this is another one, Sinopharm, it's an inactivated virus vaccine. Then again, either there's no data available against other strains or it's not effective. Again, this is from China, I guess, yeah. And here's a screenshot where you have different vaccines right now in circulation. The bottom line, I would say, as a scientist or as a friend or on a personal base, vaccines are good. Take them. If you're offered one, take it. But then talk to your doctor. If you can ask them, if you can explain your medical situation or conditions, if any, you do that. They have all these ways. Once you go for the vaccination, they would ask you a lot of medical questions, like, are you on a blood thinner? Did you get infected before? So one of the questions people ask is like, I've been infected. I think I've been infected, but I didn't get tested. Should I go for a vaccine or not? If you don't have any symptoms at this point, and if you think or if you feel that you're back to the health you were before that infection, you should probably get it. If you are under the weather or you think your immune system, basically take it as at a high level, look at it this. If your body is already fighting with an infection, don't try to instigate it. It's already down. So don't try to nudge it to be more strong. It will not be, it's already fighting. So if it is fighting an infection, not just COVID-19, not just the infection, any other infection, even if you're feeling, if you're under the weather or it's something happened, just don't go for it. But if you're totally recovered, don't be scared to do that. So then again, there are a lot of vaccines which are under clinical trial, and which is a good news. Probably it's going to happen that they're going to rethink the strategy or rethink in a way that new vaccines should come out based on the new genetic variants that, or how you call it, mutants or double mutants or triple mutants. The new vaccines are going to come out, just like the flu vaccine that every year you get a new one at times. If it is established that it's not going to be effective from the previous year's strain. So critical that you have to understand. Take home message from my understanding and my experiences. The help is on the way. It's going to get better. But then again, be aware of the fake or disinformation that having ginger water with kalonji and stuff like that, or garlic water is going to help. It's not going to help. And of course, there's a component of diet that you should have good diet, good vitamins, and all that. But that's not That's not going to change anything overnight. It should be a health habit all across. You should exercise. You should stay hydrated. But at the same time, right now, the need of the hour is to take precaution. Your physical intervention, which are non-pharmacological, like masks, social distancing, avoiding large gathering. Even if you think you're vaccinated and you're not vaccinated, vaccinated doesn't mean that you're immune to anything. It just means that you got a shot. Your body already had a preview of what can happen, so it's already prepared. But it's not that it's not going to get infected. So that's why people who are vaccinated still get infected, but the severity goes down. So again, don't gather with people you even know, but not part of your family, and you don't know where they've been coming from. The social structure in India is that you're dependent on your maids. You have doodwala come every day. You have trash pickups every day. All of that actually exposes you to more risk, right? And the idea is again same: protect yourself and stay away from the misinformation. These are the slides I have for thing. I hope I'm on time and I didn't overshoot. I'm a 2002 batch, as Dr. Dua ma'am mentioned. Here are some of the fond memories from back in 2001. We were part of the biotechnology fair, and we did really good. We used to win prizes, and Dogra sir at that time was head of the department, and Vad sir was a principal, and Dr. Dua was part of botany and biotechnology, and she taught us plant culture, tissue culture, and all that. So fond memories, very happy days. Thanks for your patience. I hope I didn't bore you guys to death, and you guys are still with me.
Thanks, Amit, for such a great information and enlightening everybody. Because at this particular time, there are so many things in the social media also, and students especially, they do not know what to follow and what not to follow. So it was a greatly an eye-opening talk from your side. And now for the queries. Some
Yes,
of the queries, yes, I posted you some of the queries. Definitely, some of them have been covered up. But I would like you to focus upon those queries, especially pertaining to the students, because they are right now very much in a panicky situation, because they do not know whether they should go for vaccination or not, whether a particular age, for example, our government, it has initiated the task that all the people above 18 years, they can get vaccinated. But what about those who are below the age of 18? And the other thing.
Just to start with that, the age 18, if you're 17 years and 11 months, how different is that? So here's a problem with the ethics. This is an ethical issue that probably the data right now, what we have, which people have looked at, and the clinical trials have been done on people who are over 18. And there's a reason why it was done, because it's more easier in terms of time to get consent from any individual who's 18. If you're not 18, then probably happens that. So right now, the good news is there are clinical trials happening for people who are under 18. And there are different, like Johnson & Johnson, some of the vaccines are already approved for 16 and above in US. I'm hoping that is going to be the case in India as well eventually, but we actually need to be patient about it. But the good news is that the people who are younger are not supposed to get infected, or even if they're getting infected, they're not going to have more severity in terms of symptoms. So hold tight. If you're under the age of 18, you need to wait for your time and make sure that those vaccines are safe for you, because we don't know yet, because some of the vaccines are dealing with your immune system. Imagine everything you do, your body is fighting. Anything you eat, anything you breathe in your body is protecting you against a lot of infections. So you don't want to get anything which people are not sure. If the scientists and doctors are not sure that it's good for people under that age, you probably should wait for your turn and wait for the enough data. But people who are eligible for the vaccination, they should get it. The simple reason is that people they have doubts about clotting. I saw some of the queries around the menstruation and whether it's going to affect fertility, whether it is going to affect other aspects of mental health. The thing is that this vaccine is basically not an infection. It is preparing your body to fight the infection. This is a mental or psychological aspect of it that actually messes up a lot of people as compared to, you'll be surprised. There's no clear data that these vaccines are going to do any harm more than what other vaccines would do. So the other vaccine, there's no correlation. People have looked at different correlations. People have been talking, there are anti-vaxxers in the US, they talk about not having vaccinations. That is basically a thought process you need to find out. Need of the hour is to get vaccinated, get enough immunity, and then you can think of something else. But there's no data. The bottom line, there's no data that's going to affect you anywhere in an adverse way other than that. Does that answer the question? Did I
sure. Yes. Yes, and another query is, for example, when the people, they go for vaccination above a particular age, suppose 50 plus. So the CRP level, is that also a major concern? If it is very high, then should we go for vaccination or not?
So again, the cardiologist would be the best person who's dealing with you would tell you. The CRP is one readout because that's indicative of your heart health. We know already that this infection actually causes cardiac adverse effects on your heart. If your CRP is bad, then again you have other comorbidities where actually your body is open to more adverse effects. Then probably even the small nudge from the vaccination can put you on the other side. So it's always good to have a comprehensive consultation with your doctor who would understand better other parameters. That CRP is not just one readout. So the heart health has multiple manifestations, and those manifestations all together have more probability of putting you on the other side. So be mindful that only one readout is not going to help. A certified medical doctor would actually be able, who's privy to your medical records, should be able to guide you better. But it's not gold standard that people who have the CRP, the elevated CRP or some other, they should not just go for it. They need to consult, but they should go and try to get it.
Fine. Another important thing is we are seeing a dip in oxygen level. So oxygen saturation, if it is lowered, it is definitely leading to suffocation and final collapse. So is there any parameter? Because not everybody is having oximeters at home. So is there any other parameter which can help in determining?
So the oxygen levels, so this is like, the oxygen level just don't go down like within minutes. There are other parameters around it. You would start feeling tired. There is general malaise, that you would feel sick. Just to get to the point where you have oxygen saturation problems, there are multiple warning bells. You need to make sure that if you can climb if your heart or your lungs are healthy enough to climb a couple of set of stairs, and you are unable to do that, you should know that there's something wrong. And if that is an indicator for that. By the time your saturation levels are already low, it's only corrective measures you can do. There's no preventive measures after that. So so make sure there are 5 parameters to it. One, to maintain, if you are not infected, maintain good hydration, good diet, good sleep, healthy food. Avoid food that would cause any gastric distress. All these actually would help with your body to be at best fight with the infection. But if the worst happens, that you have oxygen saturation problems, there's way, because I understand the ventilator and oxygen concentrators are in short supply in India right now. So everybody doesn't need a ventilator. Of course, everybody at the same time, the saturation levels should be more than 95 at least at all times. There are prone positions that you can lay on your tummy, on your stomach rather than on your back. That helps with it. Keeping yourself hydrated and having a good diet would actually help too. If this infection is passing, you can weather that. But if it has come to the point that you actually, and I've seen with quite a few people I've interacted, they say during the night, the saturation levels are the worst. And that's the simple reason that you're trying to, at times you lay on your back or there's a dip in the temperature. All those actually things contribute to it. So bottom line, if you have the saturation issues, try to be hydrated. At the same time, try to look for help. And then, of course, it's a corrective measure. And the non-invasive ventilator component, it's not very effective. There have been few social media posts around it, which is not very effective. It's not going to concentrate the atmospheric oxygen at any level. So you have to take care of yourself.
Another important thing which is being circulated that during this particular corona period, we should not switch on our air conditioners. Does it also have any effect?
So this is like, the simple analogy would be if there is dust in your air conditioning vent or the HVAC system or your air conditioner in particular, you don't want to breathe it, right? So at the same time, it's closed. If you think your air conditioning is basically going to infect you or bring in the infection from outside, you should not use it. If you're in a facility where you know there are people coming in and out and the same air is getting circulated, you should not be there. But at home, it should not be a factor because it's sitting on somewhere outside. The unit is sitting outside and it's basically not circulating air from anybody's else residence. So that is okay to do. But at the same time, hygiene is very important, and the cleanliness is important. It's not just COVID. It's basically COVID is going to be more harmful to you if you're infected or if you're sick with other issues. So take good care of your health. So air conditioners, I won't say just don't use them. Make sure they're clean. Make sure that you're not getting air or the recirculated air where you think there'll be people who might be infected. All those precautions are important, but there is no scientific data to suggest that air conditioners should not be used.
Fine. And even people are being guided that you should take more of vitamin C, vitamin D, more dietary proteins. So
Right.
vitamin C and vitamin D, are they so important in this period?
See, not just in this period. Actually, good diet is important all through. So the vitamin C, it's part of the system because it actually helps with the immune system. You can have a citrus fruit or a santra or whatever you like every day, and that will help you over the time. This will give you more, but you cannot have all the vitamin C you need to fight it off. It's not going to fight it off. It is doing is vitamin C is not fighting virus. It's basically enabling you to fight it. So it's good to have good eating habits. Of course, if you're eating good of like vitamin B and C, and this is already known, the vitamin C and D actually helps with molecular pathways that gives you longevity. And of course, how it does is it basically interferes with your insulin sensitivity pathways. So wherever your insulin is working, which includes hypertension, your diabetes, all kind of heart issues, everywhere you have the insulin sensitivity as a root cause. So all these are going to help with that, and that is where it stands. So it's not a magic bullet, but it actually helps.
Even zinc is being said that more intake of zinc, it can somewhere interfere.
The healthy levels of zinc would actually affect all these essential metals. These essentially they have either inhibitory effect for the virus, or at the same time it has an effect to enable your immune system. So, but don't poison yourself don't take too much of it. Having spoonful of zinc will actually cause much more damage than COVID could ever do. So be mindful of that. So there's no one single magic bullet. Diet as such, having these supplements in the prescribed ratio is going to help. Exercise, keep yourself hydrated, and that will help you with your mental health as well, at the same time with your immune system. If your mental health is better, your immune system is going to work wonders.
Balance of everything is extremely important.
Exactly.
I can see some questions in the chat box also. Some people are asking, diabetic and hypertension patients, can they also have COVID vaccine? And even
Yes.
obesity, it can affect the severity of COVID virus?
Affect the severity? Yes. This is like diabetes, hypertension, cardiac issues. These are all comorbidities. Basically, in all these conditions, your immune system is actually fighting at all times. So it's at war, right? So and you have COVID-19. It's easy for COVID to overtake. So these would actually make it worse. But at the same time, the vaccination is important. And I think, again, you need to talk to your healthcare provider, talk to your doctor, and if you're diabetic or hypertensive, talk to them and look at they would know if it is okay for you to go for the vaccination at that time. But the blanket rule is not that you should not get vaccine if you're diabetic. You should probably get it. It depends on case to case.
Even gargles with the alum, that is being also circulated, or use of more of cinnamon and clove. So again, I think
yes. Again, these are remedies which we have grown up with and we have known these are going to help. But this is not going to help fight virus per se. It's going to help. It's basically having turmeric. People already here in US, people are selling golden milk, which is basically turmeric milk. So, so imagine we growing up in India, turmeric is our regular. We eat it all the time. So these things in right proportion actually have a good effect, but it's over the time. When you're talking about gargles or you're talking about steam or these kind of things, it's basically not going to kill the virus. It's going to make sure if you have any congestion or anything, it's going to help, right? So it's going to relieve the symptoms, but it's not like there is one thing you need to understand. This virus is affecting the epithelial cells, right? All kind of cells everywhere. So people say if you are a big drinker, like if you take too much of alcohol, it's going to affect, because people already know if you drink too much of alcohol, it affects your gut lining and all that. Basically, it targets the same cells which COVID is trying to target. So imagine you're actually opening up your body by having this alcohol and all that. So having good diet at the same time is going to help. But the same goes for the remedy where these are not preventive. It's basically curative. You're getting rid of the symptoms by gargles and all that. Maybe like for me, clove doesn't work. I might be allergic to clove. Somebody else might not be. So you need to see if you are allergic to it or not. So it's not that somebody says, okay, garlic water is good. It might not be good for somebody else. So that the same logic goes there. It's not enough data to prove it either way.
Good.
Again,
yes, diet. I mean, that is the foremost thing. Diet, exercise, and of course, staying fit. Fitness is the main funda.
Staying hydrated. Hydrated actually helps. Hydration, having enough water in your system actually helps with the oxygen level. Even if you're infected or not, it doesn't matter. In general, it helps, and that actually helps your lung function. That's why athletes stay hydrated, not just because they're losing water, but it keeps them healthy with their oxygenation or oxygen levels.
even those who have suffered the attack of corona, so any particular kind of aftercare which they need to take care regarding, somebody has written in the chat box that after recovery of from corona, spicy foods, can they aggravate the situation and bring it back again or something like that?
I think this is interesting that somebody who gets infected by corona actually likes more spicy food. That's something. It's interesting. I won't laugh it off for a simple reason that imagine this COVID is actually affecting your salivary glands, and there are multiple glands, and there are multiple cells in your mouth, and they actually interact with your gut per se, the gut bacteria as well. So this is an interesting thing. It's not just to laugh it off matter kind of thing, but I want to see how often that is happening. Your dietary preferences can change after some kind of infection because your molecular mechanism is getting affected, your underlying system is getting infected, and it affects your gut bacteria. And your gut bacteria dictates what do you like and what you don't like. And it's already known, it's already proven. So the virus is affecting the cells that are in gut as well, affecting your epithelial cells in the mouth. No wonder it can change your liking. Same happens during pregnancy as well. That your gut flora shifts and you would have craving for some stuff. It's not just hormonal. Hormone actually affects other things. And this is what exactly is happening. Your immune system is getting fiddled with, and that can actually be cause of it. But there's no way to say it is a cause of concern or if it is beneficial. It could be just person to person dependent. And that's where it stands right now.
As a genetics student, can you point about this fact, since it's a viral infection? Definitely it will be mutating one or the other genes. So is it going to be fatal in future? That means some of our genes are permanently going to mutate within our body also.
So there are. So one of the questions I saw earlier was that why is it different wave? Like wave 1 is different from wave 2, and it's interesting. There was a paper that came out, research paper that came out from Italy, where they actually looked at the severity that the younger population was getting hospitalized way more, and that's what we are seeing in India as well. And the reason there was that there is some polymorphism in a receptor, that's TCR receptor, I guess, which is important for immune response, and that there is a polymorphism, one particular polymorphism that's been associated with more severity. If somebody has that particular genetic variation, they were more susceptible to, they were more likely to end up in hospital. So we already have some kind of genetic components which could make us more safe or more secure against this infection, or it can work the other way around. But the virus is not going to mutate us overnight. It's not going to affect, but it's going to initiate a selection procedure. Like we eventually we're going to get selected where the better genetic components in us are going to survive. But then again, just like in MERS or SARS earlier, before the lethality was 9.2%. 9 people out of 100 were dying. With COVID-19, at least it is around 2.3 to 5, depending where you look at. But before we could actually get a vaccination, that virus just went away. It was not that we did something. It was just it didn't get selected. The mutation didn't work for it. So I'm hopeful that it might help, but it could get seasonal as well. Like there was a question that is it going to be seasonal? The mutation, the virus is going to mutate over time. It might become seasonal. As of now, it's across all seasons, right? In all hemispheres, it is happening. For a simple reason, we don't have herd immunity. To get a herd immunity, at least 60 to 70% of people need to get vaccinated or have exposure to this. It's a far cry right now. It's not going to happen over like a couple of months. So we should brace ourselves to long fight with it. But the only way is like the situation was so rosy back in January and February. There's always this dip and we became complacent. But at the same time, the selection that happened and the mutation that affected us. So idea is that even if you're vaccinated, stay healthy, eat good, eat right, be aware of the things, stay away from misinformation, and that's where it stands.
Hmm. And any neurological effects that could be seen
Then again,
due to this?
then again, there are reports, but there's not enough data to say whether this is how virus works. Virus is basically going to affect every system because it's trying to get into your cells and use your body to replicate. It doesn't care what it does to your body. So if there is residual infection, if there is other kind of manifestation where you have dormant state it sticks around, it might affect. But not just the neurological one, but we need to factor in there are multiple factors around it. It's just not the virus. There were already underlying conditions which are not identified, or they're already there. There are genetic factors. So it has to be comprehensive one. So it's not that somebody got a COVID, they're going to have neurological effects eventually in their life. We don't have any data as of now to say that, confirm it. So it's more of the fear mongering part as of now. And I would be rather more hopeful that it's not going to happen. But then there are remedies and there are other things that are going to affect. So there's always this component. You need to look at these reports. One of the things is that because of the COVID, just to get the information out, there is no peer review happening as of now, like with a lot of journals. So some of the information which is half-baked or incorrect, I'm not doubting anybody's intention, but then people don't look at it comprehensively. So you need to dig deeper into the data to actually make up your mind around. So before vaccination, COVID test is required. This is a question for your local authorities to answer. In US, that's not the case. If you are free of symptoms, you actually can go in and get vaccinated. And I think if you have been exposed to anyone who has been infected, you should actually get yourself tested. So that would answer that. What about vaccination in person having history of blood clotting?
Yes,
I've read that right. Again, this question, this actually affects your immune system. Anything that affects your immune system can affect your, if you have issues with blood clotting, it's better to run it by them. There is no data as of now in clinical trials that they have looked into this. So there's no way to answer that. So it's good that you talk to your doctor and probably they can advise you. I have an advice, but I don't want to put it out because I'm not a certified medical doctor. But then again, it's not bad. That's what I can tell you. Then again, there were a few questions. Did I miss anything?
Amit sir, I have one question regarding from those parents who have got special children, like some of them suffering from mental retardedness or Down syndrome or some sort of autism. So are they more prone than the normal people, or?
As of now, it's not been seen that any set of people with any kind of genetic disorder are more prone to it. But the only thing, a child suffering from any syndrome that affects their immune system are more susceptible to that. That's a blanket understanding. If you have a special needs kid, but he has no issues with their immune system, they don't come under the high risk category. So anything that affects, if your kid is taking any immunosuppressants or anything that deals with the immune system, they probably should be taken care of more rigorously.
Okay.
So, and there were questions around, some of the questions were what I remembered from the questions you shared.
Yes.
Were like so some of them are around how to get rid of negativity, which is increasing day by day.
Yes, that is more important, I guess. More important.
Yes, so I think it's very, very, very pertinent question, and it's actually affects all of us, not just the students. That it is not easy to have limited mobility in terms of what you can do, what you cannot. But we all need to make sense of this in a way that this is something which has hit us unexpectedly, but it's going to be around for a while till we get out of this. People wanted to compare the Indian and US conditions. I remember last year it was really bad. I live in Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, so one of the port cities. Similar kind of thing what happened in Mumbai, people coming in, bringing all kind of infections, and it spread here more violently than other places. It affects your mental health. There are more distress calls, but the idea is to exercise, filter the information you're getting. Don't believe everything you see on WhatsApp or Facebook. Question it. Be a scientist in your own right. Try to question, try to reason it. There is always an answer for it. Look at the resources which are certified, CDC, even local health authorities. Just go for the right information. Try to stay upbeat. Look at your goals. What you want to achieve in 3 years. Do you want to be a doctor? You want to be a scientist? You want to be an engineer? Look at those things and try to make use of it. Look at the bright side. You don't need to go to college on weekends. We used to go to, we had to go on Saturday, but now you can stay back and read up, make some projects. Right now you have the internet as a power with you. Learn something pertinent. Stay positive. Don't keep fretting about what's going to happen, when it's going to get over. It will get over, but it will take time. And that time, for that, you need to be ready. Imagine after 6 months, 3 months, or 4 months, things are will get normalized when the vaccination is all over there. Think about those times. Be positive. Think about what you can eventually do, what you can make of this time. Invest in your personal skills. Learn something new. Learn some coding, learn some bioinformatics, learn some molecular biology. Even if you're in the field of science or not, try to look at other fields. Diagnostics part. This is a good time when people are actually reaching out to people of science and they're talking to them. Earlier it was all, okay, the scientists are kind of mad scientists already, but now they understand. A lot of people are talking RT-PCR. Think about, if you have a mind in technology, think about how RT-PCR works, how you can better it. Think about those things and come up with projects. And I think as a student, you have this liberty of thinking and trying to apply what you're learning and see how you can make it better. Rather than thinking what you're missing out, imagine what you can acquire and what you can use it in future, in very near future. It's not going to take years. It's going to be a matter of months. So imagine that. I understand a lot of interpersonal relationships get affected. You are unable to meet your friends and all that. But let's be honest, you only know that you have very few favorites of your friend. Nobody has like 20 friends, close friends. You have few of them. You can stay in touch. Be positive about it. Think about what you can build up on. Look, filter out the negativity, misinformation, and that should help. So I know this is very generic, but this is actually what's going to help. And that's how it is important. So there's one question that came out that says, since virus infection are known to cause mutation variations, will COVID virus also cause mutation in us of any kind? And it's going to affect the interplay between your genetic factors and the viral genetic factors. It's going to be there all the time, and it's going to keep fighting. It's not going to cause any, so there are two major, you have germline mutation, you have acquired mutations. Mm-hmm. This is not going to happen that way. Adenovirus, there are other viruses which actually play around with it. There's no evidence that it's going to cause that and cause cancer and all that. No. So stay positive on that. That's not going to happen. So another question, I think I addressed that. What measures do we take in case of oxygen drop level in case a ventilator is not available? That's how it is phrased. Then again, prone situation, prone condition, prone position, stay on your tummy. That's what doctors advise right now. That's what seems to be working. So one of the work questions, the symptoms seen in the second wave are totally different from the first one. This is true. Some of the common symptoms like fever, loss of smell are consistent, but there are other symptoms which are not very common. They are like pink eyes or loose motions or hearing impairment. This is again the slide I was referring to where the infection is happening. That is causing it. What kind of genetic factor is happening? So it's kind of very nerve-wracking, but at the same time, there's logic to this madness, and we need to take care of that. Booster shot of vaccines to be taken every year. How long will it happen? And again, just like flu vaccine, it's gonna be like that. This is what people think or understand based on what's going on, but there's nothing is set in stone right now. Things might change, but what it looks like that it's gonna be required for a while. Then again, there are questions around. Yes, so stay away, like whether it is airborne or not, that I think I already addressed. If you're in a close proximity, if you're in an enclosed space, that's gonna you have a higher risk. It's basically still stays the same. You need to protect yourself. Physical barrier is very important, whatever kind you like. Then again, how do you know your breath is abnormal? I mean, you're having dip in oxygen level. There are multiple symptoms that go with it. Again, that you're unable to, when it comes to breathing, it could be at times because of some kind of infection. So you need to monitor that, how that happens. I think I covered everything. Please let me know if I missed anything.
Yes, you have covered most of the questions which we had got in the registration form, but here I can have one or two more questions in the chat box. One is COVID makes the person sugar patient. Is this a myth or is it true?
Again,
metabolism change.
Yeah, so I think when you mention sugar patient, it's basically diabetic. So it has to do with your insulin sensitivity. Again, there is no direct evidence that it would do it. It might aggravate, or it might add to the problem, or it might confound the problem you already have. But that can happen with any infection for that matter. So there's no direct evidence that it's going to happen. But then again, I'll be more worried about your loss of lung function and all that, which can affect all of this, which can make other symptoms severe. So there's no direct evidence to best of my understanding.
Even COVID shield that has been banned by US, and they are reverting back to Serum Institute of India. But Indian people, we are being given COVID shield or Covaxin or all these, which I mean, whether it is safe for us or not.
So, so we need to make sure that there is a sense of responsibility when it comes to approving these vaccinations. Simple reason, need to look deeper. Why did FDA or why did US do it? There's no political angle to it. People keep saying, oh, they want to market their own vaccines and that's why they're doing it. I don't think, as a scientist, I don't believe it. Most of the time it is based on the data. It depends on the genetic makeup, clinical trials, what kind of populations that were tested on. If they were tested on significantly different populations than what we have here in US, the FDA is not going to approve it. Basically, they need to make sure it's not that it's not a statement on its efficacy in Indian population. It's this, when FDA bans it, it's the statement on its own population. They know about their own population. It's not saying that what Covishield or other people are doing is not right. It's just that they don't have enough data. They have a responsibility to make sure that it's safe for their population. And if that they don't see it, they would ban it. So there's no politics. I'm sorry to break it to you, all the conspiracy theorists around. It's not always politics. It's not always Modi, Trump, and Biden. There's more data driven.
Very true, very true. Another thing, Dr. Amit, when we take the vaccination, after how many weeks, preferably should be the second dose? Whether 4 weeks, 6 or 8, or does it vary with age?
Yes, rule of thumb is that at least 14 days after the first one, your immune system is going to be enabled a little bit. Because it depends from person to person. But then again, the data is evolving. There's no clinical trials were done 28 days apart or 21 days apart, to best of my understanding, and or a single dose. The design, so data is around this thing. But as it's been given to people, they have realized that it can actually be beneficial, or there's no enough data. I haven't seen it either way. So, but to understand how this works, your first booster dose initiates your response. The second one is going to supplement that immune response by enabling your immune response. So how far it is around, it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's actually people who are making this decision, they can tell you better. But if you have a chance, at least 28 days or 21 days have been done in clinical trials, and the efficacy we see is based around that. So you should be good if you follow that. But if your doctor says, okay, no, we have seen that it could be 2 weeks out, it's better, you can probably do that, but make sure you get the second one. The first thing, what we notice that people don't go for the second doses, which is kind of bad, and that actually defeats the purpose. So yeah, so the data is around 21 and 28 days, but if there is new guidelines that's being issued, you can follow those.
Even when we go for the COVID test, sometimes even during the RT-PCR, it is not able to detect the person, though it is COVID positive, but the RT-PCR test is going to prove it is negative. So in that case, what should we do?
So if I can take 30 seconds on the diagnostics part of it, the thing is that these are RNA viruses. This is how it happens. You have DNA, RNA, and protein. These are the three genetic, like RNA and DNA is a genetic material in there. So virus is RNA virus, and you actually, it goes in your system, use your machinery to convert it into replicate and all that. And how these tests work is basically they amplify the genes, the RNA genes of the virus, and see if it is present or not. The call rates, if it is present, is that they say, okay, if the sample is not degraded, so you should be able to detect a housekeeping gene, a human gene, and on top of it, one of the genes for this virus. There are multiple genes for the virus. Since the mutations are there, there are three factors that can affect your test. One, the sample is degraded. So probably your sample is bad and your PCR didn't work. Then there's a human error component. How exactly, if the assay was done right or not, if they forgot to put enzyme in there, or they forgot to put an assay or primers in there, that could affect it. The other third factor is the kind of mutant you're getting affected with. So at times, these are optimized for the original stain, what was there. So the testing might not be efficient just because you don't have the right primers there. So the golden rule is that if go for a test which detects multiple genes, so that even if you have mutation in one gene, the other you can pick those up. But if you have symptoms and if your test came back negative, it's very logical to go for another test. Do that. Don't depend on that. So if your test is negative, does not mean. Keep in mind the efficiency of these RT-PCR tests is anywhere between 60 to 80%. They are not 100%. No matter who claims what, I am from this field. I know that there are problems because when the sample is degraded, it can affect. In the best case scenario, it would be 99% efficient. But since the supply chain is different in India as compared to US or other places, it might affect. So if you are symptomatic, you feel the symptoms, you came back negative, go for another one. There's no other way around it.
And even in those people who are suffering from HIV virus. So I think in them, we need to take extra care.
Yes, because your immune system is already fighting a virus. Back in 80s, my career started with viral, just after my master's, my first project at PJ was about HIV, microRNA detection there. And I can tell you, it's not a happy state. The immune system is basically done and dusted. And these people are actually very much immunocompromised, and they are going to have a severest of the attacks from the other viruses. Not just the virus, even common cold can take them down. So imagine what COVID-19 would do. Anybody who's have issues with their immune system need to be very careful, especially people having drugs which are affecting or fiddling with ACE2 receptor, which is actually point of entry for this virus. Anybody who's taking those drugs need to be very careful. Anybody who has any underlying situation need to be very careful. Again, this is very generic. but then you need to stay away from the misinformation and fear mongering at the same time. Look up, read the molecular pathway. Everybody is not the same. What is happening to me would not happen to you. Read up, look into the details, find the devil is in the details. You need to actually go in and work it out. The information is sparse, there's way too much of information, and misinformation and disinformation is all over. So take a deep breath. If you see something, don't just trust it. Just investigate. Be an investigator. If you have time, lockdown is there, just to read up more. The internet is all over there. Look for the reliable sources, CDC, or for that matter, Indian Health Ministry websites, they have it. Then there are some Facebook groups where actually people like me sit down and actually talk. So look for those and try to get the answer. Don't just depend on the forwarded messages.
I think instead government imposing lockdown, we should ourselves go for the lockdown because it is a social responsibility. Government imposing and we think it is a forced thing, but no, it is such a deadly thing that we need to be more vigilant regarding it. You know?
It's not just you might be a carrier. You might actually be taking this virus and infecting somebody who should not get infected in the first place. So I know it is infringing on your liberties and all that, but at the same time, it is a social responsibility, and at the same time, you owe it to the society that just make sure it doesn't. You're not the cause for anything, and even if you're not, just be safe, be a good example. So that helps.
And especially, it is very difficult for the students to just keep indoors and having classes online. I think it's been 13 months. And they are just stuck up in their houses in just one room, one table. And in fact, some of them don't have computers also. They are managing the classes on just simple mobile phones. So we can definitely think about them, what they are facing. But I don't think there is any other solution out of it. No solution.
Yeah, just look at it. 13 months, you have already weathered it. Few more months. And that's where it stands. The more vaccination happening, the more people getting vaccinated, situation is going to get better. Look at US, look at Israel, look at other places. We were actually, California was the first state to get under the lockdown. We had stay-at-home orders. They were not strict. People actually followed based on whatever their instinct told. And you would see videos where people are fighting, like, okay, I don't want to wear a mask and all that. You get fair share of morons everywhere. But at the same time, it turned around. The vaccination, 1 in 3 people are already vaccinated in the US. And that's what is helping. We already have this information out there. CDC is saying if you're among people who are vaccinated, don't bother wearing masks. Just meet in the open spaces. That's what you need to do. It's just going to happen in very near future. Once things start turning around with the vaccination and all these physical barrier things, it's going to help. And things are going to turn around. Maybe coming Diwali, Gurpurab, things are going to get better. So just look for those times and it's just try to make most of what you can do right now. But I know it's really taxing, especially it infringes. That's been going on forever. And one of the questions was when it is going to get over. It will get over, but eventually it will happen in phases. And it can only get better. This is how we see it.
Anybody from the participants wants to directly interact with Dr. Amit? You are welcome. Anybody? So I think most of the questions and queries has been sorted out, and a whole kudos to you that you have spared so much of time despite of the, you can say, the odd schedule between India and between US. So hats off to you, Amit.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for organizing it. It's always good to be in touch. And please feel free if you have any questions or anything, you guys can reach out. Thank you so much.
I'll be sharing your email ID also and your website link also. You know, so it will be convenient for them to follow you up also. So thanks, Dr. Amit, for sparing your valuable time and answering to the queries. and in fact, so patiently, despite of the odd hours also, timings also. On
Pleasure
behalf
is all mine. Thank you.
Fine, thank you so much. On behalf of the college management, respected principal sir, Dr. Balraj Thapar, and our esteemed faculty, most of the faculty members had also joined us. So Dean Alumni also, he's very happy to have a lecture from you. And IQAC steering committee members, the Department of Biotechnology, which has been your home. And my own special thanks and blessings to you so that you rise in your career more high.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Fine. Thank you. I formally propose a formal vote of thanks. Thanks are due to college governing body, principal sir, for allowing such a wonderful interaction possible, and as a part of Alumni Reconnect program. Thanks are due to IQAC steering members also for their full support in cooperation and motivating to organize such a lecture. Most important, the participants, our students and faculty who had taken keen interest in the live interaction. Special thanks to the technical staff, especially Mr. Keshu from the automation cell. Despite of the weekend curfew in Chandigarh, he took a special pass and reached the college to organize it in well on time. He made himself available during this particular odd time also. So this proves that adversities are no hindrance, and in fact they can create opportunities. It's going to be a learning lesson that during COVID period also we have got something positive. It's going to be a blessing in disguise, I guess. We were able to interact with you after, I think, 19 years of time. So for us, it's been a good opportunity, I must say.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks for all your help. And thank you guys. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Amit. So I formally close the session and I'll be definitely sharing the feedback with you once we receive it.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.